First, the Browns trade for an offensive lineman. Then the Browns sign an offensive lineman. Then the Browns re sign an offensive lineman. Then the Browns sign another offensive lineman. Day 2 of the NFL legal tampering period is in the books. We are on to the real start of free agency now, and the Cleveland Browns have effectively rebuilt their entire offensive line. We're going to get into that, but let us know in the comments. What do you think about the Browns' moves thus far? Do you like them? Do you not? And if you want to take it the extra mile, please leave us a voicemail, 216-260-3433. I will react to what you have to say on the show. Typically, I am joined by my co-host, Eric, but he is gone the next couple days due to personal reasons. So it'll be just you and I sitting here, kicking it back, talking about what the Cleveland Browns are doing, and maybe some Guardians, some Cavs news. Hell, we even have a soccer team with a brand now. We'll get into all of that as the week progresses and if the Browns continue to make more moves, because they have been extremely active in the tampering window thus far, and they have rebuilt their whole offensive line. And as a former offensive lineman, I'm eating up all of this O-line talk. So sit down, kick back with me. Let's get into all of the different moves that the Cleveland Browns have made thus far into day 2 of the legal tampering period. So let's move into the big one. The first one, the new face, the new name that they brought in on day 2, which is Elgton Jenkins, former center of the Green Bay Packers. Jenkins obviously broke his leg last year and failed a physical, and hence why he got cut by the Packers and now is on the Browns. He got a 2-year, $24 million deal from the Cleveland Browns. $20 million of that money is guaranteed, so he will be on this roster for the next 2 years for sure. He's a little bit on the older side, age 29 or 30. I believe he might be 30, actually. Let me double check that real quick. He is 30. He's 30 now already. So he is older compared to some of the names that you would have expected them to bring in. Tyler Linderbaum is a name that was floated with the Browns a ton during the free agency cycle because of his connection to our head coach, Todd Monken. But I like this Elgton Jenkins signing because I think it is a veteran presence to come in and fortify that center position for the next 2 years. It gives you flexibility to maybe go draft a guy in the 3rd and 4th round. I think about Slaughter from Florida as an example of a guy that you could bring in here. Let him learn for a couple years and then slot in to be the starter once Jenkins is 32, 33 and on his way out, and we won't re-sign him. So I think it makes a ton of sense. The money is insignificant, and we don't even know what that cap charge looks like. I want to bring up Zion Johnson, who we talked about in yesterday's video, and him being brought in. At first, I was super against bringing him in for the price that we did, because it was like $16 million a year or something like that. Average, of course, because that's not how contracts work in the NFL or any sports league. It's never an average number throughout the term of the contract. But this year, Zion Johnson's contract's only going to cost us $5 million. The next year, it's only $8 million, and then they can void it after that. So as long as the cap hits aren't super crazy and super high for any of these offensive linemen, I'm all the way here for it, because at the end of the day, we had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, if not the worst. Depending on the ranking, you could see that the Cleveland Browns offensive line was pretty damn bad, just from the eye test as well. So we needed to rebuild this offensive line. We do rebuild this offensive line. We have now added 4 pieces. One is a returner in Teven Jenkins. The Browns themselves were the one to actually announce that Teven Jenkins was coming back, and he was pretty good once he took the role over from Wyatt Teller. I know that is a sticking point because we are all fans of the Teller family, but Teven Jenkins did do a good job when he stepped in there. If you want to look at his PFF grades, he was the 8th ranked guard last season, 77.7 overall grade. A little bit better at the run blocking than the pass blocking, according again to PFF. But he is a solid guard that fits our timeline. He's only 28. There's still time to get all of the juice out of the tank. I don't know of a better saying really to use there. He's still young enough that it makes sense, and you can add pieces again in the 3rd, the 4th round to learn for a couple years and then come in and fill these guys as roles. That's what you're supposed to do. We haven't done that in the past, so I'm giving them the grace that they're going to do it right and add key pieces this time, but time will tell on that. I want to get back to Jenkins for a second because he was a solid starter. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler for the the Green Bay Packers. He had an overall grade last year of 62, and that put him at 25th overall for all centers. He's always been kind of in that range. He's a quality starter, but he's nothing crazy. You know, if you want my true 2 cents and my true opinion, we needed to go out and get basically a whole new offensive line. Whether those guys are going to be long-term starters here, or I don't even want to say stopgaps or band-aid solutions, because you're talking about guys that are going to play 2-3 years here. So that's a sizable amount of time. I think stopgap or band-aid solutions are 1 year, but we really needed to bring new names, new faces into this offensive line, and we did just that. We now have 4 different offensive linemen that are signed to starting player money on this team. Whether you look at Zion Johnson, whether you look at Tytus Howard, whether you look at Elgton Jenkins, whether you look at Teven Jenkins, who did start games for us last year, we effectively have a new core group on this offensive line. And I even put Teven in there a little bit as well, because he didn't play that many games for us, and he was not like a starter for most of the season. He only started like the second half of the year. So this really is a brand new group. And we already have 4 out of the 5, which is interesting, because then you look around the league and you look at the different moves that have made. And, you know, there's one name that was thought to be at the top of this free agent class at the tackle for Green Bay. Some were saying he was going to get north of $20 million, and he does play left tackle. And we're moving into day 3 of free agency right now, and that man has not been signed. So you have to wonder, is his market coming down just a little bit? Is his market going to be a little more affordable for Andrew Berry to swoop in there, hand out some money, give it guaranteed, because Jimmy Haslam doesn't care if we do that kind of thing, to entice him to come to Cleveland, even though it's, say, 8, 9, 6, 7, whatever million less than 20 that he was expecting when all of the hoopla and buzz came out for him in free agency. So that is an interesting thread that we could pull as well. And then you'd effectively have signed a whole new starting offensive line, which opens up the ability to truly go best player available in the draft, which I know is enticing to a lot of Browns fans. And it becomes more enticing when you make moves like this and add players that can start for you and have shown that they can be good in the league already. It's an enticing gamble. It's an enticing way to go about it. And I think Andrew Berry loves the idea of going best player available. So giving himself the opportunity to do so here is what I think they're going for. The other thread about this is one Joel Bitonio, right? As of recording this, they have still not announced if Joel is retiring or what's going on. And of course, yesterday was his void contract time period. So we don't know what's going on with Joel, but it really does seem like he is retiring. I want to say thank you, Joel, if you do retire by the time that this video comes out, or by the time you're watching this, for everything you've done here in Cleveland, because you have been awesome to watch as an O-line fanatic like myself is. All in all, it was a good free agency period, another good day of free agency, in my opinion, for the Cleveland Browns. They bolster their offensive line. They're kind of following that Chicago Bears way of just adding as much talent as they can to that offensive line and running it back and trying something new. That's what the Chicago Bears did to try to help Caleb Williams last year in this time frame between free agency and the draft. It also makes you think maybe the Browns are going to go out there and grab themselves a left tackle like Monroe Freeling, because that is the only position we have effectively not touched at this point. One might say DeJuan Jones, he played some left tackle, but I'm pretty sure they've been adamant that he is going to be a right tackle moving forward. And honestly, DeJuan Jones being a backup or even a swing tackle, which I know goes against what I just said, but just being a swing tackle, I think, is probably what's best fitted for him at this point, just with his injury history and everything that he's had to deal with injury-wise as a Cleveland Brown thus far. There are a few names out there that I was interested in that the Cleveland Browns did not bring in. One is one Romeo Dobbs, who signed a massive deal for what I think he brings to the table. 4 years, $80 million deal. That's $20 million a year for that guy. And I don't know if I was paying that much money for him. Of course, the guarantees and the cap hits and all of that aren't out there yet, so I can't tell you what it really costs in terms of what what we care about, which is cap room and capital, right? Another name too that went off the board today is Patrick Ricard. He went to the Giants with Harbaugh. This isn't a super surprising one, but I feel like all Browns fans just assumed he was coming here to fill in some of that blocking, some of that fullback role that Todd Monken likes to have in his offenses. But that's totally okay. And I think, based off of what I'm seeing, especially with the overabundance of commitment to the offensive line that we're seeing right now with the Cleveland Browns, there's a couple things going on in the background. Andrew Berry either really likes some of these wide receivers in this draft because we need to add wide receiver talent pretty damn bad, if you couldn't tell from last year, or some of those rumors of a trade are still bubbling back there, and maybe we'll see something. Maybe we'll see a Marvin Harrison Jr. Maybe we'll see a Chris Olave. Who knows? I'm not in the four walls of Berea, so I can't really come up with those answers. It is to note, though, that Brian Thomas Jr. was a name that was linked out there in the trade market, and that the Jags were interested in dealing him, even though they previously had said they not. Now we have, I believe it was Ian Rappaport came out and said that they're still not interested in trading him. I believe that was on the Pat McAfee show. So we'll see. Maybe that's a little posturing to get a higher draft pick from the Jags, which doesn't normally pan out well when they trade with us. Greg Newsome, that trade that happened earlier in the season, of course, he did not continue to stick with the Jags, and we got Tyson Campbell, who is going to be our starting second corner for this team this year. So I'm curious to see what the Cleveland Browns do in terms of wide receiver. If you ask me my 2 cents, I think they're going to lean and lay into the trade market and end up trading for one of these guys, one of these former first-round picks, because Andrew Berry does love himself a former first-round pick, and try to get the most out of him. Of course, I'm going to be biased towards Marvin Harrison Jr. because I thought he was an elite talent coming out of college, and I'm a Buckeye fan. So, of course, I want to see more Buckeyes be Browns and Browns be Buckeyes. That's just how it goes here in Northeast Ohio. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments as well. Do you think the Browns are leaning towards trading for a wide receiver or drafting a wide receiver? Or maybe you're in the camp like me and maybe they should do both. Maybe we should go out and grab Marvin Harrison and we should grab us a Carnell Tate too. Why not? I'm the more the merrier, the more weapons for whoever our quarterback is. My money's on Shador Sanders. But whoever our quarterback, the better. More weapons for him is always the best thing. Another thought process I had about what the Browns are doing in terms of adding to the offensive line, in terms of going best player available in the draft, is the thought that they want to trade back and add more draft capital, hopefully for next year. Maybe it's even this year still, just so they can recoup the draft picks that they lost from the Deshaun Watson deal to really bolster and add talent and add young talent to either side of the ball at this point, because we lost so much of that, giving up 3 first-round picks for 1 Deshaun Watson. So it'll be curious. I wonder how much more we will be hearing about the Browns' willingness to trade down, or maybe even trade up as well from 24 to acquire or dequire. I don't know. I guess dequire is the word I'll go with there. Draft capital to get some of the names that they think fit here. I wonder. And it seems like to me, at least when I do mock drafts and I sit down and I do my thing, evaluating talent, the sweet spot of this class is really that 10 to 20 range. So if we could get 2 picks in there, add and maybe drop some later assets. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what teams are asking or willing to give up or not give up for the Cleveland Browns, but it seems like that sweet spot is really that 10 to 20 range. And if we could get a couple picks in there, I think we'll fare better having more assets as well as multiple players in that range. Going around the league a little bit more too, there was one more name that was tied to the Cleveland Browns a little bit, and this is actually a great transition because I was just speaking about who will play quarterback for the Browns in 2026. Geno Smith, before getting cut, actually gets traded to the New York Jets for basically a 6-7 pick swap, which is really, really interesting. Of course, Geno Smith played for the Jets, was drafted by the Jets the first 4 years of his career. So we'll see what happens with him over there. Of course, he regressed mightily for the Las Vegas Raiders, but who wouldn't with how garbage that team was last year. Geno Smith was not a name that I ever really truly cared about for the Cleveland Browns. I didn't think it made a ton of sense, especially when you hear Andrew Berry talk about his timeline and all of the different things that matter to him in terms of this current rebuild, this current roster, reconstruction, whatever phrasing you want to use there. So this isn't anything to me. I would have probably taken Geno Smith for a pick swap, but how much of that contract are we eating too? I know he's not making a ton of money. Listen, I'm all the way fine with Shador Sanders being our starting quarterback for 2026. That way we get to know, we get to see if those flashes were really worth it or not, and we can move forward into the 2027 season with a true answer on what many think could be a franchise quarterback in Shador Sanders. And speaking of the Las Vegas Raiders, just because it's a good transition, of course, the Ravens have backed out on Max Crosby, which is a really interesting storyline because we thought he was going to be an issue for us here in the AFC North. He fails his physical with the Ravens and is now a Raider, at least for the time being. Makes you think, are they going to trade him again? Does it hurt his trade market? What does that mean for Max Crosby in the future of his career? Who knows? I got to say, though, I'm totally happy Max Crosby and that trade didn't go through. I could care less what happens for the Baltimore Ravens. They can use their picks all they want. They can do their thing all they want because at the end of the day, Max Crosby is not going to be bearing down on our new offensive line that we acquired throughout these couple days of free agent tampering. Let me know your thoughts about everything we discussed in today's video down in the comments below. I am feeling cautiously optimistic about all the moves we've made thus far, but of course, as a fan, as a lifelong Cleveland sports fan, I want to see more from our Brownies. Until next time, my name is Noah. You are hanging out with me at the office. Peace.